The Lord reigneth. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength, wherewith strength he hath girded himself. The world also established that cannot be moved. Thy throne is established of old. Thou art from everlasting. The floods have lifted up, O Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their waves. The Lord on high is mightier than the noise of many waters, yea, than the mighty waves of the sea. Thy testimonies are very sure. Holiness becometh thine house, O Lord, forever. The subject of these words is the Lord reigneth. And he goes on and he mentions some characteristics of the Lord's reign. It's majestic, it's powerful, it's fixed, it's eternal, it's triumphant, it's in truth, and it's in righteousness. The structure of the psalm, he speaks in second and third person. In other words, he speaks of the Lord, and then he speaks to the Lord. And all that reveals is that he is fixated upon the Lord. As you read the psalm, you see the tone is very emphatic, one of certainty. There's assurance, there's a sense of awe, there's thankfulness, there's praise, there's worship. And what he does is he paints three pictures, three word pictures in this psalm, and that's what we want to briefly consider. First of all, there's a picture of God. Again, verse 1, the Lord reigneth. Picture of him as the sovereign monarch of all the world. The absolute authority. The one who is above all, over all, superior to all. The Lord reigneth. Speaks of his rule. Speaks of the fact that he's in control. The Lord reigneth. Speaks of the fact that he is directing, he is guiding, he is governing all things. Again, it's the Lord reigneth. It's continuous. That is, the Lord is always and everywhere ruling. He is always and everywhere in control. He is always everywhere guiding and directing and governing all things. So that's the picture that he's painting here. But notice also in verse 1, he is clothed. As he reigns, he is clothed with majesty. So his reign is majestic. Majesty speaks of dignity, speaks of his splendor, speaks of his glory. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength. That is power and ability. We see in verse 5 that holiness becometh thine house. So the Lord's reign is majestic. The Lord's reign is a powerful reign. The Lord's reign is holiness. Everything God does, that everything God is, everything God does, centers around his attribute of holiness. It all comes back to holiness. So that's the first picture that we have, a picture of God. In verse 3, there is a picture of the world. The floods have lifted up, O Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their waves. 3 times in that verse, he states that the waves rise. The floods lifted up. The waves are rising. That's the picture that is being drawn here. With that in mind, turn to Isaiah 57. Isaiah 57, verse 20. The wicked are like the troubled sea, when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. So what we have here in Psalm 93:3 is a picture of the world. It's a picture of the wicked. It's a picture of man in his depravity. The fact that the waves are rising is a picture of hostility against God, a picture of uprising against God, a picture of revolt against God, a picture of resistance against God. Mankind raising up their voice against God. So we have two pictures. We have the Lord reigneth. He reigns in majesty. He reigns in strength. He reigns in holiness. He's in control of all things. Then we have this second picture of the waters seemingly out of control. They rise up 3 times. So you have a picture of the world chaotic. And then the last picture is these two pictures are brought together in one. Verse 4, the Lord on high is mightier than. So that speaks of verse 1. The Lord reigneth. The Lord on high is mightier than, and then he brings in this other picture, the noise of many waters. Yea, than the mighty waves of the sea. So you have this third picture. There is God and there is the world. We can look at just God reigning. We can look at the world, chaotic, the world rising up in hostility. But the best way is to bring it all together. And when you do, the Lord is the subject. The Lord on high is mightier than. However great the waves, however fierce the waves, however violent the waves, the Lord on high is mightier than the noise of many waters. So there is not a threat. There is never a threat to the reign of God. Never. The reign of God is never threatened. The reign of God should never be called into question. It's sure, it's certain. No weapon can be effectively formed against God. And people get so upset about the floods. But you need to see the Lord on high is mightier than. And that's always so. There's never a time when that is not so. And that's where our trust is. And that's where we're to be looking this day. Brother Ben, if you'll come and lead us in singing.